World coming through, and he unearths the with the Rice with all the space takes the.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Talking Tempo. I'm Brad Campbell, and always with me is Nate McKibben. We talk about what we can, what we know, and about the Toronto Tempo. Now, we've been away for quite a while. We've been in hibernation. Sometimes life gets in the way of these things. Appreciate a few messages we've gotten on social media asking when we're going to be back at it again, and we decided to get back at it here. So, Nate, congratulations on the new baby.
Yep, first child in our family. Very much looking forward to getting her to a Toronto Tempo game. I know they have a baby race, so she's already in training to get ready for next summer. She's going to be winning. I got to take those golden booties home with me, although I'm sure other people are training as well. But no, it's been great. And then how was your time at World Championships for the U17 men's team with Canada?
A lot of fun. Just, never having done that before. Really interesting experience just to see, an incredibly high level of play for, 16-year-olds from around the world, and probably some future NBA players there for sure. And, to be in another country, in Turkey, and an ancient city like Istanbul, someone who's maybe not well world traveled, such as myself, to be able to get those experiences, something else. We were also in France for a few days before the World Championship, scrimmaging and playing the French team a couple of times, which we were at their national Olympic training facility, which is pretty wild just to be able to stay there for a few days. And, was a long haul, was like a good month, and, just working with a bunch of great people and a coaching staff that was, very, very fun and knowledgeable and just good, solid people, and as well as the support staff, and just to see that whole thing in motion and get the experience of being on a team like that and being involved, and also, just at a world championship level tournament was just something that, I'm still thinking about the time, when I'm cutting the lawn or having to do some regular activities, and just how much fun it was. And, as a coach, I don't think you can ask for much more having some of those experiences. So, very, very grateful to Basketball Canada for, having me on staff and allowing me to do that kind of thing. And, something that will always be seared in my memory with the people and the places and the experience overall, for sure.
No, and you got an easy one there in Turkey. My first one was in Chekhov, just outside of Moscow. And anyone who was at that Junior Worlds, would have been 2015, I believe, still talks about it as one of the worst tournaments ever to go to in terms of facilities, in terms of food and hotels and everything else. And it was awful tough as a performance analyst trying to figure out how to beat a team with Nafisa Collier and Asia Wilson on it. So, and funny enough, the year before, Marina Mabrey. So yeah, it's great to watch those tournaments, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to be there, but it's also kind of cool to see where everyone goes afterwards and be able to say, in 5-10 years, when some of the players you coached against or coached has a chance to make an NBA All-Star team or something else. It's neat to watch them even after the tournament is done.
One thought I had when I was there as a former player myself, but never at a national team level caliber, and as these 16-year-olds, some turning 17, I guess, this year, going into grade 12 and potentially some going into grade 11. There's a few underagers on our team as well. I can't imagine being that age, playing that high level of basketball and also, traveling around the world to do it. It's something that is incredible, and what an opportunity for those athletes to be able to experience that, and just how that can grow your game as well. Just sort of giving you confidence, seeing things, seeing part of the world at the same time. Just the whole combination of an experience of that is something probably, I don't know how I would have handled it when I was 16 or 17 years of age, and to see a lot of these kids with, the poise and kind of maturity that they have, not only being able to be coached and playing at this level, but sort of taking it in, incredible to think about.
Yeah, no, it was fun to watch your team progress over the course of the tournament, and congratulations to you and your team on a great tournament. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to sort of be part of things from afar and pick your brain about why certain things are happening and what, opponents were going to look like coming up. So, no, it was fun to be a part of, and looking forward to seeing how that group sort of progresses through the system and through their college and hopefully professional careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, been on hibernation for a little while due to these things. Life gets in the way. We're still obviously keeping up with the tempo and NBA basketball at the same time, and always have an interest there. So hopefully we can get back into our weekly routine and, continue with the pod and finish out the season. We've got a weird break, right, coming up in the WNBA for their World Championships. So I think we got a few games left here coming up, and then we're going to have that championship break, and then a few more league games, and then we're going to be into the playoffs. So, we've got probably about 10 to 12 games maybe left for teams, right, at this point.
Yeah, I think Temple are up to 11 games left before the end of their season. And it'll be interesting because, a bunch of the players on the team and even some of the coaching staff will be heading off to the World Championship. So not that this is unique because I know other leagues do it, but it's definitely fairly late in the season for this to happen. So hopefully it doesn't upset anyone's momentum. Hopefully it still provides an opportunity for players to come back and still play at an exceptionally high level going into the playoffs, because it's going to be a short sprint to get ready for that.
Yeah, I think it's going to create a weird dynamic there, not only from the players that are playing in the tournament, maybe a little bit more wear and tear from that, how many minutes and how many games and how many days are you going to have to go through that and then come back to your teaming. So that's kind of an unusual situation. But then you also have the players that aren't in the tournament just having a bit of a weird break that's longer than way longer than an all-star break at the end of the season. So it'll be really interesting to see how teams and how the tempo are going to come back out of that break. Because some like the tempo, for instance, do they have any players in this tournament coming up, Nate?
Yep. Maria Conde will be playing for Spain. You have Naira Sabali, who will be playing for Germany. And then you have Julie Alamond, who will be playing for Belgium. So I believe 3 players and then 2 coaches. Obviously, Sandy coaching with the Australian national team, and her assistant name fully escapes me at the moment. I don't know why. He'll be coaching with the German national team. So he'll be coaching Sabali. And there is a chance that they could play each other, I think, in a quarterfinal game. So I'd love to be able to see Sandy coach against her husband and assistant coach and see who comes out and who has bragging rights for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so kind of a mad scramble for that group, right? Heading out from the WNBA season into that World Championship tournament and then back to the WNBA season. Going to be kind of crazy, and there's a lot of teams with multiple players that are going to be participating. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to take a look at, and hopefully, players could stay injury free and as we're going to talk about too, the tempo may not be heading toward the playoffs this year. They're definitely tracking in that direction. So, you're still building toward next year. You're still competing in games, but there's going to be some WNBA teams that have a lot of players that, are on these teams and they're trying to win the WNBA championship. And are these, are there going to be some injuries or some things that happened at that World Championship that are going to affect their season? So all kinds of interesting storylines to come. Let's dig into our, forte here, which is the Toronto tempo, and do a little update from the time that we've been in hibernation here.
Yeah, and we're going to go over a couple things. Some are new, some are a little bit of a repeat, some are building on some concepts that we've talked about before. One thing that I think a lot of people are talking about, not necessarily just in Toronto, but across the league, is the play of Marina Mabrey. So we're going to start off with her, and we're going to get a chance to watch a little bit of tape and some of the action that she's been in most recently. So we've talked before about gravity and the way that the league judges it. I mean, you can go through the whole breakdown of how many different cameras and points of data they use to be able to evaluate it. But simply put, it's how much attention or how much do the players start to get drawn to the person that is creating the gravity. And when you look at Marina Mabrey, she's actually first in the WNBA in on-ball and interior gravity. So when she's on the perimeter of the court and also when she's in the paint. And then when she's off-ball, she's actually still number 1 in the WNBA in terms of gravity on the perimeter. In the post, a little bit less, but that's that should be sort of expected because I'm assuming that people are going to gravitate towards bigger post players and not guards cutting through the paint. Now, the interesting part is that they've started to add to their stats package and they've started to build in something called expected field goal percentage. And they've broken that down according to 2-point and 3-point. And they've looked at every one of your shots according to where you shot it on the floor, whether it's contested, what kind of shot, is it on the move, is it off the dribble? And they've been able to sort of anticipate what your shooting percentage should be just based on the shots that you are taking. And she actually has the lowest expected 3-point field goal percentage in the WNBA at 29.4%. When you remove players like Lauren Betts, Camila Cardoso, and Alyssa Thomas, who all actually have a lower percentage, but Betts and Cardoso actually have not shot a 3, and Alyssa Thomas famously just doesn't shoot 3s, so it's mostly like half-court heaves at the end of quarters or games or halves. So people expect her to actually shoot the lowest percentage in the league, but she's actually second in the WNBA in terms of 3-point field goal percentage above expectation. So she's actually plus 9.2%. So she's actually making almost 10% more or 10% points higher than what the WNBA actually anticipates. So this is what the gravity does. You just can't get a good shot. And we've talked about her taking tough shots before, but I think this is just a really great way of pointing out that people are just not giving her anything easy. And to her credit, to hit almost 40% of your shots when you're taking the toughest shots in the WNBA is just incredible. So I'm not sure we fully recognize what kind of year she is actually having for the Tempo this year.
Yeah, no, it's a super telling stat. I mean, obviously over this time, it's been a rough stretch for the Tempo, having lost a bunch in a row here and having some injuries to their season, with Sykes out and Rice was out for a long time, came back a little bit. I think Rice is back out again now as well. And, you've had Fed Bentley in and out of the lineup and all kinds of interesting things. So, Mabrey was going to have to do some heavy lifting anyway on this team, as far as, offense in general. But, Sykes, who was averaging 20 points a game, has basically been out over this time. And, it's nice to have some help. So in terms of the stats you pointed out here, she's had to do even more heavy lifting with less help in some regards. And to have the percentage, she's shooting like 44.6% from the field and 38.6% from free. But has these stats, it just shows you like how much tough shot making she's actually having to do, and how skilled she actually is. Obviously the Tempo's all-star here for good reason, and she's been an incredible player for the Tempo this season. This stat just kind of proves that point.
And we'll watch 3 clips, and we show them for 2 reasons. One, just to show what these shots sort of look like. But the second piece is, which has been interesting in terms of tactical. Early on in the season, especially with Sykes, they were a very heavy ball screen team with Mabrey. But what's happened because there's maybe less threats on the court, maybe because essentially, if she's not scoring, they can't score enough points to win on a lot of nights because the defensive number's been fairly low, that anytime she's involved in a ball screen, a trap automatically comes. So they actually have to be far more creative in how they get her involved in actions so that teams can't automatically trap. So there's been a lot of like zoom or screen away action into little DHOs or quick ball screens. But it's almost like Sandy's got to do a lot of heavy lifting, or the team has to do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of problem solving just to get her into the shot. So look at the quality of this, or the difficulty of the shot, but also look at how they're creating shots now. So a little bit of a ball screen early on in the game, you can start to see the trap is coming up, but she actually shoots a contested 3 with someone coming up to essentially put a trap on. And this is just a really difficult shot to be sort of fading a little bit to your left, well back of the 3-point line, almost out of a double team, and still ends up making the shot. Now we're in a situation, transition. You can see they try to do a little bit of a stagger or double screen away. They sort of cut back to the rim, and now quick little handoff. But these are the only types of ball screens that they can really get into. It's really difficult to get into. And even then, she's got to make all sorts of dribble moves and still make the shot over 2 people. Like, those are just not shots you want a lot of people being able to take. Last one, again, screen away into a little bit of a flip and a ball screen. You can see 2 people are starting to come, but because it's not a stationary ball screen or a slow moving ball screen, the trap is late and she's still shooting it out of the trap to get a shot there. And Brad, have you ever coached someone like this that people pay so much attention to that you can't run a simple action, that it's always got to be an action into an action just to be able to get to a contested shot?
We've been very fortunate here to have some of the leading scorers in the league over my time here and over the years. And obviously, they have the ability to really shoot it or put the ball in the basket. It's kind of fun to play with the ultimate green light, I think, right? And this is what Mabrey has. She has the ultimate green light. This is kind of the evolution of basketball we've seen in the NBA with Steph Curry and some of the crazy shots that maybe, when you and I played back in the day, that your coach would have you sit on the bench if you took these shots. But the players are a little bit more skilled, especially off the dribble. And she has that ability. We've seen Caitlin Clark come into the league with the ability to take these crazy shots off the dribble. And Mabrey's right there with her taking a lot of this. So the big question for the Tempo is, from an offensive perspective, what's our best look? How are we going to generate offense? Who do we need to generate? And part of their decision-making is we're okay with Mabrey taking these shots, primarily because she can make them. But hopefully by making some of these shots too, it'll open up the floor, lead to some other offense, maybe some drives, maybe some paint touches and inside scores, because they're going to have to extend their defense or draw too. So the big thing with the Tempo right now is she's drawing so much attention. How can she draw two to the ball? And then how can, she pass out and then we play 4-on-3 after that? So that's just how talented she is, and to those stats that you've shown and the gravity that she's putting things into. So, coaching these kind of players are fun because when they're making shots, because you look like a much better coach than seen at a distance here, because, they're just making shots and your offense looks good. The thing that doesn't look good and makes coaches squirm is when these shots aren't going in and there's no offensive rebounds and there's no paint touches and there's no shifting the defense and moving the ball side to side, and taking some time off the clock, or, those sort of natural offensive things. So it's the give and take in the modern game. And Mabrey is definitely testing our modern game and patience, maybe, as some old school coaches and people watching the game as well.
And it's been fun to look through some of the stats, because actually her stat package is very similar to Caitlin Clark. And I think, it'd be easy for a fan to look at maybe the record and be a little bit discouraged. And I think maybe at the beginning of the year, we thought that there was a chance that maybe sneak up and compete for a spot in the playoffs. It hasn't turned out that way. Some of it's been sort of outside of their control, and some of it is just the quality of the league and how well you have to play on a nightly basis to win. I would say in some ways, looking at some of this, like, they have some pieces. They're actually not as far off as maybe the record shows. You get someone like Sykes back, who was legitimately an all-star and one of the best two-way players in the league, who adds some athleticism that the team is missing. What I'm saying is, like, Mabrey's doing this with I don't want to say a lot of help, but a lot of focus on her, that I think once people are allowed to sort of move back to their natural positions or the natural pecking order within a team, they're actually maybe far closer than maybe what their record shows that they actually are.
Well, yeah, I mean, take any team in the WNBA, and obviously the better teams are going to have a lot more better players, so to speak, on the team. But you take a 20-point scorer off your team and one of the best two players, and you're an expansion team, there's going to be some bumpy road ahead, and that's what we've seen here. Mm-hmm. One sort of strategy thought that I had here too, which you pointed out, is interesting to watch the Tempo during this period with late game offense as well. So I think a lot of late game offense, you put your coaching hat on, you want to get your best player the ball, make some decisions. I think one of the easiest things, obviously, to run late game is some ball screen action, get some mismatches. But, as you mentioned with the tempo here, can you do that? Because now it's a conversation that you got to have with your staff and with yourself, thinking about prepping strategically for the game. Is, do we want to draw two of the ball and allow the defense then to trap or take the ball out of her hands and make someone else beat you? So, that's part of the strategy of the game. So sometimes, you may think about doing that and then see the double, but then, maybe you stop running ball screen entirely because you don't want to draw to the ball to take your best player out. So you might have to run some of your other action, as we've seen here from these clips. Or can we get her downhill in another way? Are there other screens she can come off? But maybe you're also helping the defense take the ball out of her hands in situations, and you're not maybe comfortable having other people make those decisions on your team. So all part of the fun of coaching and the strategy section, and also, those late game, up late at night as coaches thinking about what are we going to do late games, or the game finished and it didn't go to your way, and that's why you don't sleep at night the next night, because you're thinking about those last 10 possessions that you had in the game and what you could have done better with it. So interesting to watch the tempo during this time, having to make these adjustments for these very reasons.
And the other one that I'll just add to it, so it's trapping, but the other thing that teams have done is they've gone far bigger on her. So Ryan Howard for Atlanta did as good a job as anyone. She's got all sorts of length at like 6'2", 6'1", 6'2". Because when they've been able to put smaller players on, sometimes she'll go down and post up a little bit. So that's one adjustment that Sandy was doing a little bit, is that she's having a tough time getting a shot or playing on the perimeter. They'll just throw her in the post a little bit to get a quick touch against the smaller players. So teams are trapping, but they're also playing her bigger. Again, in a ball screen situation in a trap with a bigger guard, it just makes it that much more difficult. But we're going to go through a couple more things. So one big thing that's happened over our break is that there was a trade. So Toronto sent, I believe it was a 29 second round draft pick, and the rights to Maria Klondikova, a player from Russia who did not come over and play this year, for Aneesah Morrow. Aneesah Morrow is an interesting player. She's fairly young. She was drafted last year, first round draft pick, number 7 overall. Incredibly successful college career, and actually put up some good numbers on a not so great Connecticut team over the last year and a half. So I think kudos to the front office of the Tempo. Didn't give up a whole lot. A player who wasn't even with the program, and a second round draft pick, which often in the WNBA second round picks don't make teams. To get a young player who was 1 year removed from being a first round pick, and has started to put up decent numbers in the WNBA. So just quickly, they list her at 6'1". That might be generous, 6'1". She does play post, a little bit undersized, has to be creative and more physical. She's not someone who's going to be your traditional guard the rim 5. She'll stretch the floor a little bit and shoot, but more, her best area is actually her offensive rebounding, getting yourself second shots, even collecting her own misses at times. If you look at her college career, 2022, National Freshman of the Year at DePaul, amazing numbers there, almost 26 and 12. In her sophomore season, transferred to LSU for her last 2 years. Scoring numbers went down because a much better team, but actually her rebounding numbers went up. So naturally a very good rebounder. Even within the WNBA, she's actually averaging 9 points and 7.5 rebounds a game, which is very good for a first-year player and a second-year player. Now, her numbers have gone down a little bit as she's starting to get used to the system in Toronto, but I think a great pickup, especially since they control her rights all the way through 2028 with the club option, and then even into 2029 because she's a restricted free agent. So you don't have to make a decision on her this year. You actually have her for a couple years at a lower salary before you have to decide whether you're going to re-up and give her a bigger contract. So really good decision by Toronto. A little bit puzzling from Connecticut, but I know they're in the process of moving to Texas to play next year. So watching her play a little bit, we'll show a couple clips from the
word that you're looking for, Nate, from Connecticut standpoint is tank. They're looking to tank.
I didn't want to say the T word. I know it's a dirty word in the NBA. Houston,
and they want to tank as much as possible and bottom out and probably start over and get, their pick as low as, or say high to the number 1 pick as possible. But great move by the Tempo, hardly gave up anything in my opinion in that, and have a chance to develop a young player and someone who can be a good piece. And like you said, very controllable moving on. So, I mean, great great. Surprising to a certain extent how little, in my opinion, she went for in that regard. Like the Connecticut couldn't have got a better deal than that from somebody. It's kind of interesting. So, excellent move by the Tempo here to pick her up.
And there was rumors that Toronto's been shopping their first round pick for a post for a couple months now, basically throughout the season. So the fact that they've been able to hold on to their first round picks, get a young post, and only give up a second, I think, no brainer. And something I was worried about them losing a first round pick, but the second round pick and the rights to a player who's not currently playing in the WNBA, great pick. So here, playing for DePaul, number 24, you see her flash into the high post. Quick attack, creative finisher with either hand. But again, most of the time wants to get through your body, use athleticism, use strength. She's not someone who's going to finish with her length around the post. Next clip again, you can see here trying to sort of bully ball the way to the rim, gets her own rebound, goes up strong again. But those are the types of plays that you're going to see. She's not your 6'4" Asia Wilson. She's not your Nafisa Collier, not a little bit longer and skilled posts. Not that she's not skilled, but it's going to be a little bit more brute force. It's going to be a little bit of scrappy and getting after the loose balls. Someone who can score and rebound when you're not necessarily running plays. So she goes from DePaul being the main option. She moves to LSU, who is in title contention. I believe she won one national championship there with LSU. With Flagey, you can see here getting to the offensive glass. Now, here's an interesting one. She's actually going up against Lauren Betts. And Lauren Betts is a true center. So she'd be 6'6", 6'7", something like that. So you can see here her using speed, creativity, and a little bit of physicality to get the ball around and over a post and finish. So she's played against taller players her whole life and has found a way to be an undersized post. So I don't necessarily think it's a weakness. It's just a reality. Again, here, ball screen situation, doesn't necessarily get the first little cross screen, and even then has to use fakes, finishing outside of her body, off the dribble, off the move to be able to finish over taller players. Now, within the WNBA, size gets bigger, speed gets a little bit quicker. Some of her efficiencies have definitely gone down. The one place where her efficiency is actually exceptionally high is this. So ball screen situation, pass doesn't go. Great job of pushing the smaller defender under the rim to get the ball. Now she scraps, loose ball, pivot through, find a way to finish through contact. That's where I think she could be a huge plus for this team. Again, here, posting up, finds a way to push and get around. 50-50 ball, still finds a way, gets a little bit of contact and finish through. So great pickup.
Great pickup. And is she going to be a piece off the bench moving forward? Who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But I think, that's where, coaching is going to come into play. You got a bit of an undersized player. How is her player development going to continue to work on her perimeter game? Is she going to be able to step out, and shoot the three and then all of a sudden become that mismatch problem? So I think the big thing is, that's usually the question is, can you defend your own position? So if she's able to play kind of multiple spots, can she defend that? Okay, if we got that taken care of, now how do we extend your offensive game to different kind of positions and matchups? Because if you can defend, your own position and maybe some different positions, and then we can work on you as a big matchup problem at the offensive end. Maybe you're spacing, maybe you're setting some ball screen. Can you handle some? Can we put you in space? Can we post you up off straight matchups? Can we get switches and post you up off of mismatches and create all kinds of problems? So that's where, how skilled she is, how this development goes, and how creative the coaching staff's going to be able to get to put her in those situations is really going to be the test here.
And if she can defend the way she rebounds and she's physical, I think the the floor is fairly high for her. So yeah, she has the opportunity that if she adds some skill and some other things to her game, the ceiling starts to raise. But I think she's always going to be an effective pro because of her ability to rebound and get to the offensive glass.
But you board, you get minutes. How many minutes may depend some other, you got to do multiple things. But if you rebound, that's going to dictate the minutes. And I think one of the most transferable skills from level to level when you start jumping levels of play is rebounding. It's one of the most transferable skills. If you rebounded at the college level, and got a she was double-digit rebounder there on a very high-level program, especially at LSU. you're probably going to be able to rebound at the pro level, at the WNBA level. But what else can you do? What other parts of your game are going to allow you to get more minutes on the floor?
And I know Tom Izzo used to have the rule of 7. You said if you can average 7 rebounds at whatever level you play at, you'll have a chance to play at the next level. So, yeah, I think rebounding is one of the most transferable skills. So she'll always have that as her floor, and then can you build on that ceiling? So I thought as an interesting counterpoint or someone to compare with, that Isabelle Harrison quietly has had a career year for the tempo. And looking back at her career a little bit, I thought it was kind of neat to look at her at the same time as Morrow, because Morrow has a great person to tailor her type of effort, to tailor her type of teammate, to really work and become a long-term pro. So Isabelle Harrison played at University of Tennessee from 2011 to 15. I say that for 2 reasons. It's kind of interesting that she was part of Pat Summitt's last team at Tennessee. So she played for the legend and Coach Summitt, which I think is amazing. But if you look at her numbers, she only averaged 9.6 and 6.9 rebounds per game at Tennessee. 2-time All-SEC, so not nearly the college career that Morrow did. Was still selected 12th overall by Phoenix in the 2015 draft, and she's actually missed 3 years, 2 because of knee injuries and 1 because of an illness. So even though she's been out in the league since 2015, she's only played 9 years, and she's played for 6 different teams in that time. Career averages 8.1 points and 4.5 rebounds. But if you look at this year with Toronto, she's actually averaging 12 points, which is a career high in assists at 1.6, career high in 3-point field goal percentage at 36.4, made threes at 16. That's really impressive considering she only had 10 threes made in her 8 years previous combined. So she's been able to continue to add to her game to the point now where she's actually leading the tempo and rebounding and 4th in points. So a great year for someone who's been in the league a long time. It hasn't necessarily been a straight line, her trajectory through the league, but what a great person for someone like Morrow to learn from. And again, it's not because she's making all the pretty plays. I think she's been that one physical presence in games, especially showed up in that first game against Atlanta where she got thrown out of the game for mixing it up with Angel Reese. But she's been that consistent physical presence. She's been that little scrappy presence out there to push people forward. And I think she needs to be commended for the job that she's doing this year. So here we have a situation, ball reverse. There she is with the ball, gets into a little bit of a post up, but she's not going around you. She's trying to get shoulder into you. She's not the tallest post player in the world, so she's trying to create a little bit of contact just so she can create a little bit of space to finish. So not a tall post by any means, a little bit bigger than Morrow, but again, uses her physicality and athleticism to score rather than just her length.
I think too, she's been a very good fit in Brandello's offensive system with their 5 out. They like to space a lot of the posts in the corners up top, at least to start their offensive actions. And that's led to what you touched on, her making a lot more threes this year. And she's had some really wide open looks because she's going to be matched up with the other team's bigs. And just with some of their actions and spacing to begin with, she's left to have some wide open threes, and she's been banging them down. So great to see some evolution in their game here, and I think a very good fit with the Temple's offensive system.
Yeah, and as we watch it, she played in New York last year, so she's played for Sandy before. So I'm sure there was some of that, like, hey, she's familiar with the style. It's going to be a little bit quicker for her to get involved. And she doesn't have a problem handling the ball on the perimeter, dribbling, finding the next pass, good movement, and she can still find ways to create matchups, switches. So there again, contact to create the space, not the longest player in the world, but just knows how to create just enough space to get the ball over top. Nothing pretty, nice and simple, but just really, really good basketball.
That is, just go back to that last one if you can, Nate. That is
Sure.
Absolute classic right-handers move when you get deep into the paint. 1 or 2 dribbles off, like the defensive player kind of lets her get there, bump with the shoulder, bang down that right-handed look right there, get a clean look. There is nothing more common or sort of practiced or a go-to move more than that for a right-handed post than that move that you just saw right there.
Off the left block, Crab, finish hook middle on the left block. On the other one, I bet you should go Crab, dribble middle, and spin back to the right hand. It's amazing how many times post players find their dominant hands to finish. Second piece, what we talked about before, a little bit more for defense now. Good contest. She can guard a little bit in space, which is nice to find. So transition, quick ball screen. You know, two are going to go to the ball anytime Mabrey goes. And this is how she's been able to create an awful lot of open looks. I think she's smart and knows.
Yeah, and that's a great clip, too, from what we've talked of Mabrey, too. Like, in transition, if we are going to ball screen with her, let's get it in transition because the defense isn't set. And look, it's causing more confusion. And this is what we've talked about, a little bit more open threes that she's getting. But if Mabrey's going to get a good look, it's probably going to be in this situation off a ball screen. So, you know, that's probably where the high usage of ball screens going to occur for her in transition. But right here, this is where she's getting the fruits of that sort of action and getting the wide open look.
It's crazy to look at the gravity in this one, too. So late getting into their trap on the ball screen, still two that are chasing, plus the third who's coming to help. Another person is rotating, another person is covering the cutter. So essentially you have all 5 defensive players below the free throw line, basically 4 players in the key. Like you can't guard the 3-point line like that. But that's the shot people are going to give up because they just don't want Mabrey to have the ball. All right. Now let's get into some truth. Now, Brad, do you want to take credit for the tempo playing really well at the beginning of the year as our pod was going on? Or are we going to take the blame for the fact that we left and the 10-game losing streak happened? I think I feel a little guilty. Is it our responsibility that it sort of dropped off a little bit?
It is not our responsibility. It's coincidence. And the fact that like we didn't go on hibernation either because of the losses were piling up and we just kind of packed it in. As we mentioned, life got in the way there. So hopefully you can get it back, go from here. But again, this is, you know, life of sports sometime and, you know, injuries and setbacks and your lineup, you know, when the tempo season is finished, how many games will they have actually played, let's say with their top 8 players or their starting 5, what Coach Brandello would think that there was their best starting 5 and that maybe there's their 6th, 7th, 8th man coming off the bench. Did that even exist this season at some point? Probably not. So these are the curveballs that sometimes can happen and you have to change, you have to adapt and, you know, all of a sudden, you know, Sykes and one of your best players out. How do we adapt offensively and defensively to give ourselves a chance there? You know, Rice is playing great, and then all of a sudden she goes down. Who's going to fill that gap? Maybe we have to play different. Are we playing more guards? Are we playing bigger? Are we playing smaller? You know, these are all the things that have to happen over the course of this season. So, and at the same time, you're an expansion team, and probably the expectations are low to make the playoffs and win a pile of games anyway. So, all part of you know, sports, not maybe the fun part if you're with the tempo, but just part of the reality.
Well, and the crazy part is, so they beat New York in Montreal. Great win. Maybe one of the best wins they've had all season. And then you go through a stretch of your next 10 games where only one team has a losing record, and that was Portland. And so you're just absolutely slugging it out, and you don't have, you know, one of your top 2 players, you know, an all-star from last year. You don't have your top rookie for some of the games. You're on the road for a lot of those games. I think in some ways it was the perfect storm. We knew it was going to be difficult, but some of the things just made the margin of error to win basketball games just so small. So the reality is they're currently 10-23. They're 9 games back with 11 games to play. Unless an absolute miracle, they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm sure they're still going to compete and try to put the best product out there because the first year, and I know the tempo probably took a more aggressive position than maybe their counterparts in Portland did. Portland maybe sort of took the long view, whereas I think Toronto tried to be a little bit more competitive right away. So I think there's still going to be some impetus to win games. But the reality is, essentially, we either have the 3rd worst record in the league right now. The only teams with worst records are Connecticut and Seattle. Seattle looked good today and almost pulled out a victory against Chicago, but that's just the reality of where their records are. So currently, if the season ended today, Toronto would have a 16% chance of getting the first pick, 34% chance of being top 2, or 58 to be in the top 3 picks. We don't want to get too much into the weeds because obviously we want to enjoy the rest of the season, but there was a couple interesting pieces I just thought we'd throw out there. This is a very good draft. There's a ton of talent. A lot of it is unfortunately going to be more the guards and the wings, which might not necessarily be an area of need for the tempo. But there is some interesting players that we just sort of want to introduce. And if we don't get the first pick, If Juju doesn't come out into this draft class, she goes back to school. The player I would circle and love to see play is Madison Booker. She's not a post. She's more of a wing, but I think you could do some interesting things with her as a 3 or a 4. So just wanted to show a couple clips of her because she's one of my favorite players to watch in the NCAA, and partially because she's a little bit old school. She's a big wing that can handle ball screens, play in transition, rebounds exceptionally well, post up a little bit, use ball screens, but she very rarely shoots threes. It's almost all mid-range. And she's so good about creating, using her physicality and her athleticism that she's just a lot of fun to watch. So I just thought I'd throw it out there as like, hey, Juju would be amazing, but if not, I think this kid's going to be an all-star for years once she gets into the league. So here, tough defensive rebound, attacking downhill, stop on a dime, mid-range, just absolutely pure in her stroke. Here we have a situation where she's got a little bit of a matchup. Ball goes into the post. She can bully people a little bit. Watch the creation on this turnaround jump shot. Physicality, fade away, just absolutely true on her release. She's just a lot of fun to watch. Ball screen situation, a little bit off an elbow though. Again, creating her own against a tall player. That's actually one of the better post players coming out in the draft. I forget her name off the top of my head for Kentucky. She's about 6'5", but Booker's just an amazing shooter. Now, one that no one really knows what to do. Post player from China. That is not a typo. Some people actually think she's 7'4". Some people think she's 7'3". The WNBA has not seen a post player like this since Margot Dudek played when the league first started. And Margot, I believe, was 7'2". Still might have the season record for block shots in a single season. She is a completely unique post player. I do not know if she's going to be coming into this draft. I'm not 100% sure on the international rules about when they get entered in the draft automatically. But if you're looking for a post player and you don't have the first overall draft pick, it might be enticing to take a look at someone like that. So number 19, this is a senior national tournament. The first picture was actually a youth tournament, I believe the Cadet World Championships. Now we're starting to get into senior basketball, and there's actually going to be WNBA players out there. But this is just something that we haven't seen in a long time in women's basketball. She doesn't play a ton for the Chinese senior national team, but again, she's something unique. Not a ton of movement, very much a low post player, very much to the ground, but just no one really knows what to do defensively against her. Now, Brad, have you seen her play before?
I have not at all. This is brand new to me, but I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Massive.
Again, not a ton of movement. It's basically running up and planting, but just changes the whole spacing. Now, the other piece here, too, is the player she's playing against. This is Belgium. I forget the player's name. She played in Connecticut. She's played in a couple different WNBA programs. She's actually a big post. I believe she's like 6'3", 6'4", very strong, but she looks small. Like, it just changes the space. It changes the angles. It changes the dynamics. You can even see her just drop her head being like, what do you do? If you get buried deep against that, like, you're done. There's really no way to defend it, even with multiple defenders.
Well, and obviously, you can't front their play on the high side because it's just going to be an easy lob over the top and then the gravity of that pass. So if she's able to get her body on you deep, seal you in, 5 feet in, like, what are you supposed to do at that point? I mean, you try to go for the strip. You're going to try to pull the chair on her, maybe try all the tricks, but that's just pure size. Obviously, she looks like she has something. She's not like super skinny or anything either, and able to put your body on you. That's going to be a tough cover at 5 feet in for sure.
But it's also one of these things. Okay, so you do decide to invest in her. I'm not sure she's a 30-minute a game player even. You look back in history of the men's game. Yao Ming wasn't someone you could stretch and play longer periods of time. You might have to be a little bit shorter with their time. One more. This is an interesting one because the player she's going up against is Emma Meesman, who's probably the best player in the world not currently in the WNBA. She was an WNBA Finals MVP, fantastic post player, and even she has just no idea other than just, I'm going to be vertical and hope that she misses. Just because if the WNBA draft doesn't work out for post players, and that's an area that they need to get better at, Emma Meesman, just a couple clips of her, 33 from Belgium, probably the best player currently not playing in the WNBA, played for Sandy in New York. this would be another option if you didn't want to go through the draft of can you bring in a player to really push the team forward. And she'd be fantastic. She'd make any team in the WNBA better. She's a forward who can play a little bit on the perimeter, get involved in a lot of the handoffs and ball screen situations that Sandy likes to get into. She wouldn't slow you down at all. And actually, the thing that she does the best, I know the first 2 clips we're shooting, it's a passer. She's one of the best passers in the world. Very creative, very natural, very smooth, sets it up. Great feel for the game. So if you didn't want to go post in the draft, I would highly recommend that this be the first person you call outside of your organization to see if there's any interest to bring it over. And so happens that Julie Allemond, it's one of her teammates from Belgium. So
Any idea why she's not in the WNBA this year?
she hasn't always come over. She's someone who plays for top European teams and really values playing for her country. So sometimes she'll make an effort not to play in the WNBA to make sure she's fresh for World Championships or Olympics or other major tournaments. Or if she's injured from her European career, she'll stay over there because I think she does still make more money overseas. It'll be interesting to see if she is given a big contract, $1 million or more, whether or not a European team can match that and whether that's important to her. So I wouldn't be surprised if she came, but she would be an interesting one. And then the other names are ones that everyone's going to talk about. There's been some talk about whether Napheesa Collier re-signs in Minnesota. There's also been some talk about whether or not Ezi Magbegor for Seattle is available with the trade. So I know they're going to make some sort of move in the post. I think they have to. I think their guard game is strong enough. Do I think it's going to be in the draft? I don't know. Maybe you just take best possible player there and then just try to find a forward somewhere else because there is going to be some available, but I think everyone's going to be fighting for them because I think everyone sees the type of value a true post or a really strong post has to a WNBA franchise.
Appreciate if you made it this far. Check us out on Instagram at Talking Tempo. Also, you want to send us an email, have any questions, you can hit us up at talkingtempo@gmail.com. Got some questions, got some feedback, let us know. And hopefully we can continue to get out of our deep sleep that we've been in and keep producing some pods here and finish off the season.
Looking forward to heading to the game on Tuesday with you as well. Be good to see Indiana and Toronto there at Scotiabank. Big arena, big game. Should be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm assuming, obviously the Tempo have had a great atmosphere at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. Taking that to Scotiabank, bigger venue. I'm assuming that's going to be sold out. I think ticket prices are a little wacky at this point for the Fever coming in. So we'll milk those season tickets that you got, and hopefully the Tempo can compete. Fever are in a bit of a heater at this point, playing well. So maybe some reports have said maybe Sykes is back for Tuesday potentially. So that would be obviously a huge boost. I'm assuming there'd be a minute restriction in there probably at some point, but a little bit of Sykes is better than no Sykes.
Yep, they had the open practice, I guess today. I guess she played in some of the live drills and sounds like she looked good, and from the clips that they shared, it definitely looks like she hasn't lost too much of a step, but doesn't surprise me in how well she takes care of her body and the type of professional athlete she is. So I'm looking forward to seeing her on Tuesday or whenever she's able to get back.